Stephanie, and let's talk books. So today I have another book haul for you guys. I feel like I just did one, but my book haul shelf on my TBR cart is overflowing, so let's go ahead and get into the books. So let's start off with some Brandon Sanderson. I have been working on my collection of UK edition of Sanderson books, and I picked up Volume 1 and 2 of The Way of Kings, Volume 1 and 2 of Words of Radiance, and Volumes 1 and 2 of Oathbringer. So when they first published Oathbringer, they published it with a black spine, which did not match the white spine on the rest of the books, which is kind of a bummer, but what you gotta do about it. Apparently they have re-released it with the white spine, because I managed to get one copy with each kind of spine. So that's a little bit annoying, but these did come from the UK, so I'm going to go ahead and keep them. The white spine is the newer edition, so I will probably wait a while and try to order it again and see if I can get the white spine. I'm kind of assuming that maybe they had a couple more of the black spine editions lying around that they haven't sold yet, so I ended up with one of each. I also picked up a paperback edition of Mistborn. This is kind of their YA cover, which I think is a really cool picture of it. I am planning on doing an annotated read-through of the original Mistborn trilogy this year, and I wanted to get a copy that I could take notes in, and I decided that this nice big floppy paperback would be great for that. I also picked up the UK edition of Starsight to add to my Skyward collection, and cover again is just so beautiful. Love the gold foiling, and I'm super happy to have this book. And to finish out the Brandon Sanderson books, I found a paperback copy of Alcatraz versus the Evil Librarians, which is book 1 of his middle grade series at my local used bookstore, and I just couldn't leave a Sanderson book there, so I picked this up. This is the only one from this series that I have, but they're really, really funny. I love the humor and the absurdity in the series, and I would definitely recommend it to adults. It's definitely something adults can enjoy as well as your middle grade reader. I also picked up a used copy of the Game of Thrones. I'm hoping to start this series this year, and I definitely needed the first book to start with. And I also picked up books 2 and 3 from the Great Library series. So this is another series that's kind of been on my radar, and I found these both for super cheap. I will probably get book 1 from the library, but they're also like really, really pretty. I just love the look of the spines. They look like old library books, and I thought that's super cool, and I'm always up for a book about books. I also picked up A Crown of Feathers by Nikki Palpretto, which is a sort of boy finds a dragon type story, except it's a girl and she wants to join the Phoenix Riders, and she has to disguise herself as a boy in order to join the group of Phoenix Riders. And I am super excited about this book. I've actually already started it, and I'm really hoping that this is a favorite because it includes a lot of my favorite tropes. Lastly, I got a couple of non-fiction books, if you want to call them that. I got a Rogue One and a Last Jedi sort of movie companion book, and I'm super excited to have these and dig into some behind the scenes Star Wars stuff. I love Star Wars. I don't tend to enjoy the Star Wars fiction books as much as I enjoy the movies and these more sort of ancillary non-fiction type books. But these both promise to be just really, really pretty books. And I also got another super pretty Star Wars book. This is the Star Wars Propaganda book by Pablo Hidalgo. So a little bit of story time about Pablo Hidalgo. He is a member of the Lucasfilm Story Group, and those are the people that are the Star Wars experts, and they are consulted about the different Star Wars media that comes out so that they can make sure that with all the different movies and TV shows and books and video games and comic books, that things aren't getting published that contradict each other. My introduction to Pablo was actually through a podcast called It Came from the Depths of Netflix, which when it started involved 3 guys who would watch 1 and 2 star rated movies on Netflix, and then they would discuss them. It was obvious that they all kind of had some sort of film background, but I kind of always imagined like it was a bunch of 20-something-year-olds hanging out in their basement watching silly movies. And then I began to realize that these were people that actually knew what they were talking about, and that they all worked at Lucasfilm. And Pablo was this Pablo. It was Pablo Hidalgo that was on this podcast, and I was like, wow, I feel like a really crappy Star Wars fan for not realizing that. It's a really fun podcast if you want to go back and listen to it. Pablo had to leave the podcast, which is totally understandable because dude's busy wrangling all this Star Wars stuff. But his other 2 co-hosts, and then they also added a lady who came on and joined, are still putting out some of these podcasts, and they're super hilarious. But back to this book. This book includes a lot of beautiful propaganda posters from the Star Wars universe, and it is written as if it was written by someone in universe, sort of studying these posters from a historical perspective, which I think is really cool, and I'm excited to read it because it's, you know, sort of written as an in-world non-fiction book, and I think that's such a really cool thing. It also comes with super pretty posters that I'm hoping to put up in my library. A lot of the posters are sort of like World War I, World War II, or Cold War kind of inspired propaganda posters, which I think is super neat. Those are all periods of history that I enjoy, and so I'm really excited that my Star Wars nerd and my history nerd can geek out over this book. So those are all the books that I have got recently, and let me know, have you picked up any good books recently?